This video was made possible by the EA Creator Network. Hello everyone. Welcome on in. I'm Velvet. Thanks for joining me today in The Sims 4 for a speed build. And we are doing something a little different today. We are building an abandoned house. Why am I building an abandoned house? Fantastic question. I'm glad you asked. I am building an abandoned house for a collaboration. So this was put together by the always amazing Pigletish. And what Pigletish is doing is basically doing a bit of gameplay, sort of apocalypse style. And what we're doing is we're turning Brindleton Bay into an apocalypse zone. So there's going to be apocalypse stuff everywhere. There's going to be abandoned houses and all sorts of things going on in Brindleton Bay. It is the season for, like, some scarier kind of things going on there out in the world, coming up to Halloween. So this is sort of leaning into that vibe and that whole sort of, zone of things. So I decided for this collaboration that I would create an abandoned house. I don't do a lot of sort of the rundown style homes. I do tend to lean towards doing prettier builds just because that's what I like to do. But I don't mind doing something a little bit more rundown. It does mean that I get to use some different build buy items. I get to explore, different packs and doing different things with them. And I think that's a bit of fun as well. So the idea that I had for this build was that I wanted to have obviously an abandoned house, but also a greenhouse in the back. So, it just kind of felt like there was like a little garden kind of aspect to it. I just had this vision. I don't know why, but I did. And the vision was that there'd be a house and there'd be like a little sort of broken down greenhouse out the back that had, seen better days, let's just put it that way. And the idea is that the whole lot is kind of overgrown and abandoned looking, but it has been used from time to time. So it's the thing with the abandoned lots, they're never really truly abandoned because people will squat in there and they'll use them. And during these chaotic times of the apocalypse, I feel like a house like this would be super useful for maybe a group of people to come in and perhaps live in this house and make it their own, or people as they float through the area, maybe they've come in and they've spent a couple of nights here just to rest and recuperate, and then they move on to their next area. So that was kind of the idea that I had in my head for how I wanted to approach this house, and make it it needed to be livable, and I wanted it to make it livable. So if there are characters that need to be living in the apocalypse, they're kind of squatting in this house, and there's older sort of furnishings in there, and I've tried to add a few little useful items in there that they can use to live with, because I feel like you still need those for sort of gameplay adventures. And I know that Pigletish was planning on using this whole world for gameplay, which sounds a lot of fun and very chaotic. So I love that. And I'm excited to see what she does with this, because, I think it'll be a lot of fun. But I feel like, I did a decent job of making this house look abandoned and a little bit overgrown. Like, nobody's really maintaining it, but people are using it. Is essentially just the nuts and bolts of it. It's not maintained, but it is being used. It took me a little while just to figure out how I wanted to do the exterior with the rocks and the stones and the landscaping, and how that was all going to shape up. I did lean into using debug from Cats and Dogs, just because this is in Brindleton Bay, which is the world of Cats and Dogs. So I wanted it to look like it was organically part of Brindleton Bay in terms of the landscaping itself. So I did lean into the debug from that pack for that reason. But I didn't just stick exclusively to using the Cats and Dogs pack. It is an assorted amount of packs. I mean, not an overly huge amount of packs. Actually, what packs? I feel like I'm saying the word packs too much. You know how you just suddenly you start saying a sentence and then the same word just keeps popping in over and over. But I mean, it makes sense. But Yeah, I feel like, yeah, I did. I use a large assortment of packs with this one, so it's not a limited pack build at all. I just wanted to really dive into all of the items that I had available to me with The Sims 4 that really fit the vibe of this house. And you can sort of see as the grass goes into this that yeah, you're definitely getting those overrun, overgrown, really unkempt vibes from it. But at the same time, it's still going to be functional. There's like a bonfire out the back, and so you're going to be able to cook on that. There's like a rundown oven and um, a fridge and bits and pieces on the inside. So if you want to take the time to fix those up, those will be usable. So there's like little things like that. And in the gardening shed, I left some seeds. So if whatever the characters go in here happen to want to grow things and grow their own food, then they're going to be able to do that and start to make some of their own, own their own food. Oh, and I put some fitness stuff outside as well, just like some stuff that looks like it's kind of, put together from different pieces of junk that people have found around the place. The werewolves pack is really good for that. So I just utilized that quite nicely. The wallpaper that I use is actually from Island Living, I believe, just using the ivy from vampires. And yeah, just use an assortment of different packs to really bring this whole rundown, unkempt vibe together. But there are packs that do really work better for this than other packs. And things like werewolves and the basement treasures kit. And what else did I really use quite heavily? Yeah, as I said, the vampire ivy, but I don't know that vampires is necessarily a great rundown kind of pack. But for the ivy and like the dead ivy running up the walls, it was very good for that. I don't think. Yeah, I think I did use like maybe a little bit of cats and dogs, but yeah, werewolves. And oh, the other thing was the restoration workshop kit, because in that kit you can actually put in the salvaged or the items that are to be fixed. Because with that kit you can actually fix up fridges, ovens, microwaves, and coffee machines. So I used those in the kitchen on the inside of the build, like it's very much a rundown kitchen, but it's fixer upperable. I don't think that's a word, but you can fix it up, right? Oh, and the other thing that I used was Strangerville. That was the other pack that I really went heavy on, because the Strangerville has these floor stains, and one of the colors of the floor stains is red. So I'm part of the story, and the idea behind this house is that this is a house that's had some bad things happen to it. So the apocalypse has come along and happened, but before the apocalypse happened, this house was abandoned. Like, this house has been abandoned for a while, and people come and go through it. As I said, like, it's a very transitional kind of home for people, to do what they need to do when they need to do it. But the idea was that before the whole apocalypse happened, some bad things happened in this house. So I gave a little hint of that in the house in a couple of places. And I think you can sort of see that as you explore the house and that sort of thing. So yeah, I wanted to add like that little fun element to it. Like, the idea was that this is in a time where there is chaos, and yeah, things are very uncertain. This house continues to have a history that is very concerning. So yeah, that's what I kind of leaned into. Oh yeah, so I did actually use vampires quite heavily in this because of all of the wall kind of damage and that sort of thing as well. So vampires and werewolves actually really good for doing the rundown vibes. And then for rent as well, with using the grime, because quite frankly, if you're squatting in a house for a couple of days and you're moving through towns and you're keeping yourself safe, are you going to spend your time cleaning up an abandoned house that you're staying in for a couple of days? Probably not. So it really did make sense to me that they would likely be the house itself would likely be quite dirty. I didn't go overboard with like rubbish and everything everywhere, because I feel like, if they're using it as a functional house, then they probably won't leave too much dirt and grime around the place, depending on the people. I mean, there's some people that just simply don't care and will just throw things on the ground, but other people might come along and, be like, I'm staying here for a week. I'm going to have it, at least not be reeking of old rubbish and that sort of thing. So I didn't really go down the route of filling it full of old rubbish or anything like that, but I did want to make it look like it hadn't been cleaned in a while, that it was a little unkempt, and the things that are left in the house are things that have kind of been accumulated from you know, maybe other wrecked houses and that sort of thing, or like old stuff that they've found, yeah, round about the place. And it's just kind of been put in this house, and or maybe it's like from a older time where, you know, the house was lived in, and they've just sort of like the furniture's got a little bit run down over that time because it's been misused a bit. So that was kind of the vision and the vibe that I was going for with this whole build. And I feel like I kind of got there with it. You know, like the floorboards are kind of run down and messy, and there's like, you know, there's a fireplace, but the furniture's kind of scratched up and patchy and, you know, kind of held together with a little bit of determination more than anything, you know? So that was kind of the vibe that I was trying to capture, and I think I kind of got there in the end. And because it's in Brindleton Bay, I did want to make it look like it had been formerly a small family home that maybe had a dog as well. So that was part of my intention, was it was a family home before the family kind of fled here, and they did flee and they kind of left all their stuff behind. It wasn't something that they planned to do. It was just one of those things where things went haywire, and they were just like, nah, we're out of here, stuff all the stuff, we're gone. And I did leave like little saws and tools and bits and pieces around the place, just as a suggestion of potential weapons, you know? Because in debug, if you type in tool, if you've got your debug cheats activated, you can actually bring up like a few different tools. Like there's a pipe wrench, there's a hammer, there's a saw, there's a chisel, there's a few different things. So that's, I think that might be base game as well. So yeah, there's a few different tools that you can actually activate through debug, and I took advantage of that and left a few around the place just as a little hint that maybe the people that live in here are prepared to defend themselves, and it may get a little messy if needed. So does raise some questions, I feel like. But for the most part, I was trying to get, you know, things that I felt like would fit in a house that is a little abandoned and run down but still usable. And I did play test it as well, so you know, I did make sure that you could go around and you could sleep in all the rooms and you could use the bathrooms and, you know, that sort of thing as well. I did use from Eco Lifestyle, there's some broken furnishings in that, so I think there's a broken dresser and there was a broken bath, so they're not actually functional items, but they are sort of broken, they look broken down, so I ended up using those, and the stacked sort of semi-broken items from Basement Treasures. Used a bit of that as well, but yeah, Eco Lifestyle, there's some broken furnishing in there that was quite handy to use. And of course, you know, spiders and cobwebs and grotty things for the walls, all that sort of thing. So brought them out to play, and I don't always use them very often, so it was actually quite nice to actually find these things and just work out some different things that I could do. I was playing around with the idea of having a doll's head, like a creepy doll's head lying around, but I was just like, well, it's not necessarily that people are psychos are sort of living in this house or anything like that, psycho killers or anything, but maybe, possibly. But I thought the doll's head might be a little too far. I don't know. I couldn't get it to sit there properly anyway, so it was just like, too hard. We'll just do saws and puddles of blood around the place. It'll be fine. That'll be hinting enough. And some creepy dolls. Because, you know, you're going to have a creepy doll. But, you know, there's lots of activities and there's little things that you can do in this house. So I feel like, you know, you could actually have a fairly decent life in this house if you needed a house that you wanted to fix up as well. I mean, there's a possibility of that. Maybe you needed to have a little bit of money every time that you clean up some of the grime. It costs you a bit of money, stuff like that. I know people do those sorts of challenges and they seem quite fun, where you like have a old like barn or a house or anything like that, and it's all grotty and yucky, and then, you know, each of the things that you need to clean up costs a bit of money. And yeah, that's a bit of a challenge, isn't it? It would definitely be a challenge in this house because I used a lot of grime around the place. So yeah, another thing is, like, you know, I tried to make like some of the functional things look as DIY as I could as well. Not always possible with all of the items in the game, just because it is what it is. But yeah, some of them I tried to make, like the DIY shower and the wooden toilet. Like maybe they, you know, someone carved that toilet together. I don't know how you carve a toilet, but apparently we can. And yes, you know, stuff like that. So I did want to make it try and make it look like stuff that people have kind of made and left as they've traveled through. And this is going to be the last room, I think, in the house. The shower, I mean, the bath in there is non-functional, and it definitely lends a rather broad hint to the history of the house and why it was abandoned in the first place. I didn't go shy on in this room. It's just a little bit off to the side in the house, and it maybe not the first room that you go in, and then you sort of go in there and you see this puddle of blood and the saw and a skull in there, and it's just like, suspicious. Anyway, we're coming to the end of the build, so I'm going to basically wrap it up there. Oh, we've still got one room to go. Whoopsies. But I'm going to wrap it up anyway after we finish this room. And I want to say a big thank you to everyone that has come out and supported me in watching this video today. It is always greatly appreciated, and I know that your time is precious, because I know that my time is precious, and I know that your time is precious. So anyone that spends their time on me, it's the most precious thing that you can do. So thank you. I always appreciate it. And if you do want to download this build, it is up on the gallery. It's called Abandoned House, and VelvettB on the gallery. And also feel free to check out Pigletish as well, a fabulous creator in The Sims 4, a lot of fun, does regular streams. So I think whatever her plans are for these builds and this apocalypse in Brindleton Bay, they're going to be happening on stream. So you can check those out. I'll link that in the description below for you. Big thank you to watching again. I appreciate you guys, and I will catch you next time around. Bye-bye.